When my new neighbors invited me to their housewarming party, I thought it was just small-town hospitality. But the moment I stepped through their front door, I realized something about them wasn't right. And by then, it was too late to leave unnoticed. I had only lived in the neighborhood for 2 weeks when the invitation arrived. It wasn't slipped under the door like a normal note, but rather taped to my apartment door with surgical precision. A plain white envelope, no handwriting on the front. Just my name typed in an old-fashioned serif font. Inside, the paper smelled faintly chemical, like it had been freshly pressed at a print shop that hadn't been aired out in years. The message was short, strange, and polite. You are warmly invited to join us at 6 p.m. this Friday at number 14. Your presence will be noticed. That last sentence unsettled me. Your presence will be noticed. At first, I told myself it was just old-fashioned wording. Maybe they meant appreciated. Still, I couldn't shake the unease that clung to me as I stood in my kitchen, reading it over again and again. The neighbors at number 14 had moved in only a week before me. They were a couple. At least, that's what I assumed. A man and a woman in their mid-40s, pale, always dressed neatly. They drove a spotless black sedan with no plates, at least not ones I could read. The few times I saw them in passing, they never spoke. They only smiled, not warmly, but in a way that felt rehearsed, as though someone had once told them how humans smile, and they were trying their best to copy it. I thought maybe I was being judgmental. I didn't know anyone in this town yet, and I didn't want to start off being the weird, antisocial neighbor. So, against my gut feeling, I decided I'd go. By Friday evening, I had convinced myself it would just be a harmless gathering. Maybe they were odd, but maybe the whole street would be there. That thought gave me comfort. At 5:55 p.m., I walked up to number 14. The house looked different from the others on the block. Every window was covered with thick beige curtains, drawn completely shut, as if the house were trying to keep the world out, or maybe keep something inside. The front yard was perfectly trimmed, almost unnatural in its symmetry. Every blade of grass was the same length, and the hedges looked as though they had been cut with a ruler. When I knocked on the door, it opened almost instantly, too quickly, as if someone had been standing right behind it, waiting. The man answered. His suit was black, perfectly pressed, his tie, dark red. He looked at me with that same smile. Teeth too white, lips stretched too thin. "Welcome," he said. His voice was calm, measured. "We've been expecting you." I stepped inside, and immediately the smell hit me. Not food, not wine, not candles. It was sterile. The house smelled like a hospital hallway. Bleach, disinfectant, something metallic beneath it. The woman appeared next. She wore a cream-colored dress, her hair pulled back tightly. She smiled too, the same smile as the man. They didn't ask for my coat. They didn't offer me a drink. They didn't make small talk. Instead, the woman gestured toward the living room and said softly, "The others are waiting." Inside, about a dozen people were seated, all dressed in dark formal clothing, all silent. They weren't mingling or chatting like you'd expect at a party. They were just sitting, staring at the empty chair at the center of the room, my chair. Something in me screamed to leave right then, but their eyes, every single pair, followed me. Watching, unblinking, I sat down. The man and woman took their places at the front of the room. The air felt heavy, like I had stepped into a courtroom rather than a living room. "Now that we're complete," the man said softly, "we may begin." And just like that, every single person in the room smiled at the exact same time. They called it a party, but it didn't feel like one. There was no music, no laughter, no chatter, just a dozen strangers in a perfect house, waiting for something I couldn't yet name. And then, They served dinner. The silence stretched on until the man at the front of the room clapped his hands once. It was sharp, echoing, too loud for such a small space. Immediately, everyone stood in perfect unison. No hesitation, no murmurs, just movement like they had rehearsed it. I stood too, awkwardly a beat late, and followed as the group filed into the dining room. The table was long, much too large for the house. A heavy oak structure, polished until it shone like glass. There were no centerpieces, no flowers, no decorations, just plates, glasses, and cutlery lined up with absolute precision. At each place setting sat the exact same meal. A pale slab of meat, no seasoning, no sauce. Beside it, boiled vegetables so colorless they looked almost fake. The smell was faintly chemical, like the envelope that had been taped to my door. The woman, I still didn't know her name, gestured for me to sit at the far end. Once again, every eye followed me until I lowered myself into the chair. Nobody touched their food until the man raised his glass. "To our guest," he said, looking directly at me. The others raised their glasses too, in perfect synchronization. The sound of them clinking together was sharp, metallic, as though the glass were too thin. "To our guest," they repeated. Their voices were low, flat, and disturbingly uniform. I forced a smile and lifted my glass. The liquid inside wasn't wine. It was clear, odorless, like water, but when I took a sip, it had a strange aftertaste. Faintly bitter, almost metallic. I set the glass down quickly, my stomach tightening. Then as one, they began to eat. Not like normal people, though. Their movements were mechanical, precise. Each lifted forkful was the same size. Each chew lasted the same amount of time. No one spoke. The only sounds were the soft clinks of cutlery against porcelain. I cut into the meat. It was gray, dense. Not beef, not chicken, nothing. Nothing I could recognize. My instincts screamed at me not to eat it, but I didn't want to stand out, so I forced myself to chew. It was flavorless, completely unnaturally flavorless, like chewing rubber. I glanced around the table. No one else looked uncomfortable. In fact, their faces didn't look like they felt anything at all. And then I noticed something worse. Every single person at the table was chewing in sync. Their jaws moved up and down at the exact same rhythm, like a metronome ticking. I froze with the fork halfway to my mouth. Across the table, one of the guests, a woman with sharp cheekbones and long dark hair, slowly turned her head to me. She was still chewing, still perfectly in rhythm, but her eyes locked onto mine with unnerving intensity. She didn't blink. She didn't stop chewing. She just stared. I looked away, my heart hammering. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours, and then, suddenly, the man at the head of the table set down his fork. Instantly, everyone else did the same. The plates were still half full, but no one questioned it. They just folded their hands neatly in their laps and stared ahead. The man smiled at me. "Was it to your liking?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, thank you." His smile widened, showing too many teeth. "Good, you belong here." I didn't know what to say. My palms were sweating and every nerve in my body screamed at me to get up and leave. But when I shifted slightly in my chair, I felt all 12 pairs of eyes on me again, watching, waiting. The woman at the man's side spoke for the first time that evening. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the room with eerie clarity. "Shall we proceed?" she asked. The man nodded once. "Yes, it is time." The group stood again in perfect unison. Chairs scraped back in a single synchronized motion. I didn't want to follow. I wanted to run for the door. But when I glanced toward the hallway, two of the guests were already standing there, silently blocking the way. I forced a shaky smile and stood, pretending this was all normal. They led me toward a door at the back of the dining room. It was closed, heavy, with no knob on the outside. The man pulled a key from his pocket, unlocked it, and gestured for me to step inside first. The smell hit me immediately, stronger than before. Bleach, disinfectant, metal. The room was dim, lit only by a single hanging bulb. The walls were lined with shelves, each holding neatly labeled jars. The contents floated in cloudy liquid, impossible to identify. At the center of the room was a table, stainless steel, surgical. I froze in the doorway. "What is this?" I asked. The man's smile never faltered. "It is tradition." And then, for the first time all night, the group broke their silence. A low hum rose from their throats, all in the same note, vibrating through the room. Not words, just sound, a sound that made my skin crawl. The woman stepped forward, holding a small box. She opened it slowly, revealing what looked like a silver instrument, long, sharp, gleaming under the bulb. She held it out to me. "Your turn," she whispered. The next morning, I found an envelope on my porch. No knock, no sound. Just there. My name was written across it in shaky cursive. But it wasn't quite right, like someone had copied it after only seeing it once. The A in Alex was looped twice. The M in my last name had too many humps. Inside was a thick piece of paper that smelled faintly metallic, almost like pennies. The words were handwritten. "You are cordially invited to our gathering, Saturday, 9 p.m. Please come, your new neighbors." There was no address written, because of course they knew I already knew. For the rest of the day, I debated what to do. My friends laughed when I texted them. "Free booze, dude, just go." But the invitation felt wrong. That night, when I looked out the window, I swear I saw them standing in their backyard, all facing my house in complete silence. When I blinked, they were gone. Saturday came faster than I wanted. At exactly 9:00 p.m., the bass of some unfamiliar music began to vibrate through the walls. It didn't sound like any genre I recognized. It was more like an unsteady rhythm, thudding and scraping with no melody. I stood at my window, staring at their house lit with a dull reddish glow. And then I noticed something chilling. Every single window in their house was covered. From the inside, when I finally convinced myself to go, I grabbed the invitation and stepped onto my porch. Before I could take another step, a voice whispered behind me, low and deliberate, "We've been waiting for you." I walked across the street slowly, each step heavier than the last. Their front door opened before I could knock. No one touched it. Inside, the air was thick. The same metallic smell from the invitation hung in the hallway, stronger now, almost suffocating. The music rattled in my chest, not loud, but invasive. Like it was tuned to my pulse, the neighbors were scattered around the living room. At first glance, they looked like regular people chatting in clusters, but when I looked closer, the details fell apart. Their smiles didn't fade, not even while chewing. Their skin had no pores, no blemishes, just smooth, waxy perfection. Their eyes didn't track naturally. Instead, they snapped, almost clicking from one point to another. One of them turned toward me. Her dress was elegant, black silk that shimmered faintly in the dim red light. She raised her glass, and her mouth opened a fraction too wide when she spoke. "Welcome, Alex. We're glad you accepted." I hadn't told them my name. Not once. I tried to smile, to act normal, and they guided me toward the center of the room. A table was set with glasses filled with a thick, dark liquid. Everyone gathered, lifting their drinks in eerie unison. The host, the same man I saw moving unnaturally in the yard days ago, spoke. To new beginnings, to unity, to Alex. The room echoed, to Alex. I stared at the glass in my hand. It wasn't wine, it was too thick. The smell made me gag. As I hesitated, the woman in black leaned close to me. Her whisper was cold and deliberate. "Drink, or they'll know you don't belong." I held the glass in my hand, my fingers trembling. The thick liquid clung to the sides like oil. Everyone else was staring, unblinking, grins frozen in place. I forced the rim to my lips and tilted it just enough for a drop to touch my tongue. It wasn't wine, it wasn't juice. It was metallic, coppery, thick. My stomach turned. I set the glass down before I could gag, and that's when the room shifted. One by one, their smiles began to twitch wider, their movements synced like rehearsed choreography. They all turned toward the host. He lifted his glass, drained it completely, and when he lowered it, his jaw kept opening, wider and wider still. Until it shouldn't have been possible, I heard a crack, like bone splitting. The others followed, mouths stretching too far, eyes rolling white, their smooth skin rippling like something underneath was trying to push through. The music changed. The low hum deepened, vibrating against my ribs. I realized it wasn't music at all. It was them, chanting in some guttural, grinding tone. The woman in black stepped forward and took my hand. Her skin was cold, almost rubbery. She pulled me into the center of the room where the furniture had been cleared. The others formed a circle around me, their bodies swaying in unison. "To unity," they chanted. "To Alex." Their voices overlapped, distorted, vibrating like feedback from broken speakers. My chest tightened. My fight-or-flight instincts screamed, but my legs wouldn't move. They were closing in, their movements sharp and insect-like, their faces stretching into grotesque masks of something not human. The host stepped into the circle with me, his face splitting into that impossible grin. He leaned close, and I felt his cold breath on my ear. "It's time for you to join us." The circle tightened, their bodies pressed closer, shoulders locking together, swaying in unison like a living wall. The woman in black still had my hand. Her grip was iron. Unnatural for someone so thin, I pulled, but her fingers didn't move. They weren't just holding me, they were anchoring me. The chanting grew louder. The hum shook my chest like a subwoofer. The host raised his hand and the room went silent. He dipped 2 fingers into the glass of thick red liquid and smeared it across my forehead in a slow, deliberate symbol. It burned. Not like fire, but like ice burrowing under my skin. The others cheered, a distorted sound like static and laughter woven together. Then, without warning, their faces drew closer. Dozens of eyes, wide and unblinking, staring into mine. Their mouths stretched, whispering words I couldn't understand. "Welcome, Alex." One of us. Panic took over. I wrenched my arm as hard as I could, tearing free from the woman's grip. Her nails scratched deep into my skin, drawing blood, but I didn't stop. I shoved past the bodies pressing in around me. They were solid, too solid, but the circle broke just enough for me to force my way out. I bolted toward the front door. My shoes slipped on the polished wood as I ran, the low hum following me like it was inside my skull. I grabbed the knob, twisted it hard, locked. Behind me, I heard the synchronized footsteps closing in, slow, deliberate. The sound of something hunting, not chasing. I pounded on the door with my fists, screaming for help. My voice cracked, echoing through the house. No one outside answered. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw it. The host was holding the key, dangling it casually between 2 fingers, his face stretched into that too wide smile. "You can't leave, Alex. Not yet." As he spoke, the others began crawling toward me, on hands and feet, their limbs bending wrong, joints cracking as their bow. Dies twisted into inhuman shapes. The house wasn't just their home, it was their cage, and I was trapped inside with them. The crawling sound was unbearable. Nails scraped across the wood floor, joints popped like breaking twigs. I spun around, pressing my back to the locked door. They weren't walking like people anymore, their arms bent the wrong way, shoulders dislocating and resetting as if their bones were made of rubber. Their faces were still smiling, always smiling. The host stepped forward, key still dangling. "Alex," he said calmly, "you were chosen. Don't resist. Few ever get this chance." His voice was deep, vibrating through the walls, but his lips barely moved. "Chosen for what?" I screamed. He tilted his head, eyes unblinking, "to see us as we truly are. The lights flickered, dimmed, and for the first time their disguises slipped. Their skin rippled like masks peeling away. Flesh became translucent, revealing veins that pulsed with black liquid. Their teeth elongated, jagged, and uneven, yet their smiles never faltered. One woman's jaw unhinged with a wet crack, opening far too wide. A man's eyes split into four, blinking out of sync. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. It felt like my head was being held in place by invisible hands. The host leaned closer, so close I could feel his cold breath against my cheek. "We don't live here, we wear here. This neighborhood is a mask, Alex, and soon, so are you." Behind him, the others began chanting again, voices layered, echoing in ways that didn't make sense, like multiple people speaking through the same mouth. The red mark on my forehead burned hotter, sinking with their chant, like it was alive. The host slipped the key into his pocket and extended his hand toward me. "Stay with us," he whispered, "or be warned." The circle tightened again, and this time I wasn't sure if they were inviting me in or preparing to rip me apart. The laughter in the room didn't fade. It stopped, like someone had hit a mute button. Dozens of faces turned toward me at once, all smiling, all perfectly still. For a moment, I thought it was a prank, some weird cult-like icebreaker, but then the smiles didn't move, didn't twitch, didn't break. They just stayed. I forced a laugh. Bathroom?" I muttered, pointing vaguely down the hall. No one answered. No one moved. It felt like I was being studied, dissected by their stares. My chest grew tight, my throat dry. I tried again. "Seriously, I just need to step out for a second." Finally, one of them spoke, a man near the fireplace, his smile wider than it had any right to be. "You can't leave yet. The night isn't over." The room tilted. My instinct screamed, "Run!" I didn't respond. I just backed toward the hallway, step by step, their eyes following me the entire way. Not a sound, not a breath. As soon as I cleared the corner, I bolted, sprinting down the hallway toward the front door. But the air grew heavier, almost thick, like running through water. Every step dragged, every shadow along the walls seemed to lean toward me. I reached the foyer. My hands fumbled for the doorknob. Cold, slick with sweat. I twisted hard. It didn't move. And behind me, the silence broke. Shuffling footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming closer. I pulled harder. Nothing. The lock refused to budge. Panic surged. I darted to the window, yanking at the latch. It groaned, half open, just enough to give me hope, before slamming shut on its own, sealing tight. "No!" I gasped, banging my palm against the glass. "No, no, no!" I turned back. The hallway was full now, a line of figures in the dark, all smiling, all watching, and then, in perfect unison, they whispered, "You're one of us now." Their whispers still echoed, the words sinking like ice into my chest. "You're one of us now." I staggered back, pressing myself against the locked front door, my eyes darting between the smiling face. "What the hell do you want from me?" I yelled, my voice cracking. The man from the fireplace stepped forward, his smile never wavered. "You've been living among us for months. You didn't even notice. Not until tonight." I don't understand," I stammered. He tilted his head as though studying a child. "We moved here for a reason. People are lonely. They crave connection. They want neighbors who smile, who wave, who invite them in. We give them that." "And then?" I whispered. His smile widened, stretching too far, too tight. "Then they stay. One by one, the others stepped closer. My throat closed as I realized they weren't people at all. Not exactly. Their skin shimmered under the dim light, almost waxy, like masks stretched too thin. Their movements were synchronized, mechanical, rehearsed. I scanned the room desperately and saw something in the corner. A door, slightly ajar. Not part of the floor plan I knew. I bolted. My shoulder slammed through, the wood splintering. I tumbled into a basement stairwell. The air down there was damp, heavy with rot. I hit the bottom step and froze. The basement wasn't empty. It was full of people, dozens of them, some slumped in chairs, some strapped to walls, eyes wide and vacant. They looked just like the neighbors' stairs. Same faces, same smiles, except these were lifeless, puppets with the strings cut. My stomach turned, my head spun. The truth hit me in one brutal wave. The things upstairs, they weren't the neighbors. They were using the neighbors, wearing them. The man's voice drifted down the stairs behind me, calm, icy. Don't be afraid, you'll get used to it. Soon you'll be smiling too. I looked around wildly for a weapon, an exit, anything. But before I could move, cold hands gripped my shoulders from behind. Too many hands. The last thing I saw was a mirror across the room, my reflection caught in the broken glass. My own face was smiling back at me, a smile I couldn't control.